Welcome in, everyone. Welcome to Sounds Gouda, our first Packers podcast made by two best friends. I'm one of your two co-hosts. My name is Ralph. Here with me is my best friend, Jordan Olson. We're two Packers fans that want to bring you all things Packers before the draft tomorrow. So we'll go ahead and get started a little bit. We're going to go ahead and give you a little bit of introductory, where we're from, what we're about, and some of our Packers moments. So Jordan, go ahead, take it away, man.
Hey everybody, excited to be here for Sounds Gouda, our first ever Packers podcast. As Rob said, we are best friends, and this is something we've been talking about doing for a while. We're finally going to pull the string on it and, hopefully give you guys some good content. But more than anything, we're thinking about the Packers 365 days, and this is really a hobby that we're turning into this, right? And hopefully you enjoy our perspective. But I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan now. I'm born and raised in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Been a huge Packers fan my whole life. Really a Wisconsin sports enthusiast altogether. If you're on my Twitter, you probably see some Blackhawks posts. I am a Blackhawks fan too. Rob and I went to our first game back together in college, and we kind of stuck with that. But we're not here to talk about the Hawks. We've had a lot of ups and downs together with the Packers. Some of my earliest memories of going to Packers games started back with my dad, my Uncle Tim, my brothers. Probably one of my favorite memories, right, is going to Lambeau for the first time, going and tailgating, walking around, going to Stadium View, and just having the most mouth-watering brat before a night game and going and watching the Packers beat the Lions, and as a young person, really like somebody coming into their early teens, for those of you who've been to Lambeau, it's a magical moment, right? The atmosphere is second to none. Obviously Super Bowls, championship games, wins, losses, all that stuff. I've been there through it all. Live and breathe the Packers. And I'm sure as you get to know us more, we're going to get to share a lot of those fun memories and stories with you. So I'll pass it back to Rob and tell you a little bit about himself.
Yeah, so not born and raised in Wisconsin, far from it. Born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. Lived in Utah, New Mexico, Turkey for a stint. I grew up in a military family, so I've been all across the board, but I've been in Wisconsin since my 10th grade year in high school. And that's where I was fortunate enough to meet my best friend, Jordan. We both rode the bench together throughout our basketball career in high school. And that's how we first met. We weren't starters or anything.
We've ordered a few
Yeah.
clipboards thrown by our coach.
Yeah, we won't get into that discussion, but yeah, we were able to ride those fun years together, getting to know each other, and that's really how our friendship started, right? So how I became a Packers fan, yeah, I would say that's ultimately by this guy that's sitting right here from you. I grew up watching Phoenix Suns games, not too much of the Arizona Cardinals because they don't quite have the fandom or anywhere near to it as the people in Wisconsin, the Midwest. So it was pretty special going to Jordan's house, being with his ecstatic dad and watching those games. I remember, like the 2006 NFC Championship game. We all remember how that went. Jordan was at my house to watch that epically fail against the New York Giants. But that's basically how I became a Packers fan. So nothing too crazy. And over the years, I just ended up getting absolutely obsessed. How can you not like the Green Bay Packers? They're a cooperative, right? They're owned by the community. They're a great run organization that has a lot of good history and tradition. People believe the green and gold here. And it just being something to where, I fell in love with the NFL, with the Packers, and have been absolutely obsessed with them ever since. So that's basically where I came from. So Jordan, with this, let's transition into some of our Packers' favorite moments, followed by some of the worst moments that you've experienced so far.
Well, I think that really some of my earliest memories, and I think this speaks to like just growing up in Wisconsin, right? Like how fitting is it as like a 36-year-old man that some of my earliest memories are Packers games, right? Like literally Super Bowl 31, 1996. That's the first time I can definitively remember actual plays from a game, like the Desmond Howard kickoff return, like sticks out in my mind as like one of the first plays that I can remember as a sports fan, right? So like how magical is that to be a kid, at that point in time I was, going on 8 years old. And obviously born into being a Wisconsin fan, there's really no other choice, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Rob and I have been to playoff games together, some good, some not so good.
Don't speak about the 49ers. That's one of our rules.
Ugh, 49ers, let's not even go there, right? Um, this is our year to take over the Niners, right? And it's a lot of that's going to start tonight in the draft, right? We're recording this the day before, but you're going to probably listen to this on draft day or beyond. But yeah, I think as you, like I said, you get to know us, we'll share some more of those stories, but I'll let Rob share a few of his moments and then we'll jump into the draft and talk and conversation around that.
Yeah, so like I was talking about and alluding to earlier, like one of my first memories was obviously the 2006 NFC Championship game. That was pretty brutal. But the one that really just got me excited got me hooked was the 2010 Super Bowl, 2010-2011 Super Bowl, right? Some of the greatest moments I can remember was the BJ Raji interception and dance twirl in the end zone in the NFC Championship game against the Chicago Bears. That's one I'll never forget. And then watching the Super Bowl against the Pittsburgh Steelers when Clay Matthews at the end of that caused that fumble for the Packers and was able to get that. And it is time. It is time after that famous quote, and was pretty excited after that. And ultimately, they ended up winning that. So that was absolutely amazing, I'm sure, for most Packers fans. And then the worst that I don't think anybody will ever want to recall is the 2014 NFC Championship game against the Seahawks. And just about everything had to go wrong for that one. I think we had like a 99% chance of winning probability in that game, and literally everything had to go wrong, and it all did. So that one, I can remember being in a bar with my family and being like, this is it. We're going to do it. We beat the Seahawks at Seattle. This is fucking amazing, to absolute just dismay and disheartened. And I've never been so sad, I think, in my life as far as the Green Bay Packers goes. So that's some of my favorite and worst Packers memories. All right, so we have something coming up tonight, right? It's NFL draft. So for the Packers and what we're going to be doing this year, how do you feel like, what are the biggest needs for the Packers coming up?
Obviously, I think offensive line is a place where we have some depth issues. I feel like we have five good or adequate starters. I think there's probably some discussion on the interior, right? We don't know what we're going to get in Sean Ryan. I think that Josh Myers has left us some to be desired over the last, couple seasons here. Our defensive back room, really it'll be very interesting to see what Goody, LaFleur, and Hafley put together with this new defensive scheme and what they need in terms of personnel.
Pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to be after 3 years of feeling like you've been in prison with Joe Barry as your prison guard, right? But I mean, secondary help, safety, linebackers is a massive gap, outside of Quay there. And I guess we're hoping at this point in time that Isaiah McDuffie can be a starter, although I do really view him as somebody who's a really nice complementary linebacker piece. There probably will be a lot of sets where there's only two linebackers on the field at once. So hopefully you only have to use them at base. But, going into this draft, we need at least one other great linebacker. The free agent market is bare. And, I'd be willing to bet that we might take a look at more than one of those guys. So yeah, obviously, if you're here listening to us, maybe we've got a lot of great perspective and insight. You might be junkies like us. You probably heard some of these takes before, right? A lot of you, and I've heard this a few times in the past couple of years, but like people are really impressed with Packers fans and their knowledge, right? How knowledgeable we are about the game, but also how knowledgeable we are about the organization and the Packers trends, right? It's very clear that there is some kind of parameter set of standards. A lot of us on the internet, we like RAS, right, or RAS scores. We don't know definitively if the Packers use RAS or RAS, but it's pretty clear that they have a certain set of standards for each position that they draft, whether that's height and weight, lateral
Arm
agility
length.
movements. Exactly. So, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on, and what our Packers types are. A lot of what we're going to talk about today, are the guys that we like, right? These are our takes, which I think a lot of it aligns with some names that are popular out there in the national media. But hopefully, we really narrow in on a few guys that we like for the draft, and then we'll see how this turns out. So, I'm going to kind of turn it over to round one, right? So that's Thursday night tonight. Rob and I talked in preparation for this podcast, and we really think there's about 6 players that are realistically going to be there for the Packers, and we kind of want to discuss our option and preference there, right? So for the sake of this, consensus boards and mock drafts, we didn't really put anybody from the top 15 or 20 in there. We are pick 25 tonight. And then we really started looking at some guys that we like that are our guys, right? So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to highlight a few, and then I'm going to ask Rob if he's Goody, who's he picking tonight, right? So,
No pressure.
no pressure, right? So first of all, everybody's favorite right now, Cooper DeJean, safety, defensive back, cornerback, hybrid, nickel,
lot of versatility.
Guy from Iowa, right? We know the Packers love drafting guys from Iowa. Didn't quite complete all his tests from my understanding, but somebody who's got an relative athletic score of 9.85, right? So an extremely high level athlete, 98th percentile. Sticking in the secondary too, we've got Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback from Bama, right? You got a guy who's got extreme pedigree. I believe is former, 5-star recruit. He's had some injuries recently, but came in with a 7 RAS. Some of that might be related to injury. There's still a couple other questions about his effort and things, but I think if the Packers are looking in the secondary, he's, the other viable option there, right? Moving into the offensive line, we've got 2 guys I really like, Graham Barton, and Tyler Guyton. Graham Barton has played all over the line. He's played in tackle. He's played interior. He's from Duke, and he scored 9.99. He's one of the highest scores ever profiling for an interior offensive lineman. Tyler Guyton profiles to be more of an offensive tackle prospect from Oklahoma via TCU. He has a little less than 2 years of starting experience, but another really high scoring athlete. One thing to note about Tyler Guyton is that his height and weight thresholds are a little bit out of what the Packers consider their norm, right? He's an inch taller than normal. Typically, they like to draft guys that are 6'6" or less, between 6'2" and 6'6".
And Tyler got in Oklahoma, right?
Oklahoma, yes.
Yeah.
A couple other guys, and I'm going to let Rob give us his take, right? I think obviously we talked about glaring need at linebacker. Edgerrin Cooper is a guy who's probably like a borderline first round pick. But we've seen Goody take those guys before that are somewhere in the second round on the consensus board, and that's his guy, right? The Packers have a history too of drafting linebackers in the first line, and I know there's a lot of conversation about positional value and maximizing that. But I wouldn't put it past Goody to take Cooper if he likes him tomorrow, right? And then the other guy, Chop Robinson, if they're looking for a different edge, somebody who's a little bit smaller. I think he only goes he's from Penn State, 9.68 on the RAS score. We have a lot of other guys from our 3-4 system that I think are a little bigger body type. But I think he's more of a speed rusher that could give us something different. So Rob, which one of those guys or what direction do you think that the Packers are going tomorrow night or tonight?
I'm gonna try and do the NFL pick is in. Dun dun dun. All right, so like you just mentioned, don't judge me on that NFL sound, but I did my best. So, like you alluded to as well, too, there's just a ton, especially in the first couple of rounds, right? And even going back throughout the whole draft, it's just loaded with really good offensive line depth. If I am Goody, I know they like versatility, and I'm not just saying this because this guy has almost a perfect RAS score, but Graham Barton, Duke, offensive line prospect, inside offensive line, played a little bit of center as well, right? Just has a ton of that versatility that they really like. You got Josh Myers on his last year of his contract. I understand you're probably not going to be putting that guy at center. But so what are we going to do there? There's been some conversation of moving Zach Tom over to into center, and that's been a hot topic recently in the last couple of weeks. But I really do see him as putting really good competition there with Sean Ryan, right? I think we all have been through this Royce Newman experiment through the last 4 years, and are honestly really, really quite scared when he comes in and blocks. He was a little bit better last year, and the times he was able to get in very infrequently, but been very up and down, mostly down. So I think Barton, they met with him, I believe, at the combine. He is just so versatile. He can play inside, which is I think is where he'll have the competition with Sean Ryan, depending on what they do with Zach Tom, and how Josh Myers plays this year too, right? So for me and that pick, I'm going Graham Barton from Duke.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give a different take for the sake of this podcast, right? But Rob, I couldn't agree anymore. I think that if I'm duty tomorrow with the athlete that Graham Barton is and the versatility that he seeks along the offensive line, I think he opens up a world of possibilities for us, right? Now you have three guys on the line that are extremely versatile, right? And Zach Tom, Elton Jenkins, and then Graham Barton. So I think immediately day one, you upgrade one of those interior positions. He could be a day one starter at guard. He can play swing tackle if you're comfortable with the five that are out there right now on the depth chart. And, he could play right tackle, right? I do think he profiles best on the inside. He creates a succession plan to Josh Myers, whether that's this season or beyond. And, there's tackles that can be had later on in the draft, too. And as we've alluded to, we're probably going to be taking a few offensive linemen in this draft. I'll take a moment to talk about the secondary. I think the slam dunk pick, right, is Cooper DeJean. If you listen to a lot of national media, you probably know about him and what he can do and why we might be interested, right? So just to talk about Kool-Aid a little bit more, I think that there's a chance that he would be available at 25. I really like him on the outside to pair opposite of Jair. We know that Eric Stokes has had an injury history over the last 2 years that have made him a little bit unreliable. And we don't even know if he's going to come back to that rookie season form that we saw, right? So somebody who's got the pedigree that Kool-Aid has, the size, the length, coming off an injury, running a 4.5, I think he profiles great to be a match there. We're going to talk about round two here in a minute. But if we don't get that offensive lineman in round one, right? And we take secondary, I think that we have a tremendous opportunity to pick up some offensive linemen on day two and day three that we're really going to like. I think back to your point, Rob, about getting Graham Barton right now and getting him early is that if we do want to move Zach Tom, that we probably need somebody in the first 2 days if we're going to try to make that plan happen this year. I know there's a lot of Packers fans out there that are like, we just produced starters in round 4 and 5, right? Because we did it with Corey Linsley, we did it with Bach. But those guys take time, and I don't think we can count on that. So if we want to move Tom to the inside, taking somebody like Barton early on, I think is a sweet move. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. So okay, the pick is in. We take Graham Barton, Duke, right? We're both putting that out there as our choice, right? So we're moving on to day two, right? So then there's still a lot of really good options out there. You highlighted them, some of those already, but I think maybe Edgerrin Cooper could be gone before the Packers and that first second round pick. Maybe a Max Mountain would still be there. You're looking at other people, possibly like Jordan Hicks, right? That versatile kind of more your box hybrid safety that would pair really well with Xavier McKinney in this new 4-3 defense. put out there by Halfley as an option, and we love his tape, and we all know what the hell he did to Wisconsin when they played him up there at Washington State, right? He had a hell of a game. So, and not only that, but one or two more. Ben Sinnott, versatile halfback from K-State, right? Like somebody who could come in immediately and hopefully be a better version of Josiah DeGora. We all know how that turned out, but just somebody who basically could be used as like a Kyle Juszczyk, right, from San Francisco 49ers. In fact, he looks like an exact carbon copy of Kyle Juszczyk, and how versatile and what Matt LaFleur could do and being creative and getting that guy involved. I absolutely love that guy's tape. But what are you thinking here for some day two picks?
Yeah, I'm just going to play off of Ben Sinnott for a second. And just a quick correction. I think we said Jordan Hicks. I think it's Jaden Hicks.
Jaden Hicks, yes.
Yeah, this is our first one, guys. Honestly, we're not shooting for perfection, and we expect to give you a little bit more polish as we go along here. But yeah, Jaden Hicks, and yeah, he's a heat-seeking missile in that Wisconsin game, and I've had my eye on him for well over a year now, right? Back to that HVAC role, I do think that Goody is seeking somebody in there, somebody that's on my radar, kind of on the peripheral, that would fit that mold too, I think, is Malachi Corley, wide receiver from Western Kentucky. I think he's like a Tyler Irvin upgrade, so if he is looking for that Kyle Juszczyk, Tyler Irvin kind of move player who can catch out of the backfield, who can block, I think he's got that body type too. I think he's like 5'11", thick, like 225 pounds, got great hands. So I think those are a couple guys to watch to fill that role. And it's hard to say where they're going to go, but I think anywhere between 58, 88, and 91 could be options for those guys, right? A couple other guys that I want to highlight, right? We talked about Jaden Hicks at safety. If you want to pair somebody else who's a really dynamic athlete to play that strong safety role and move around, I think Cole Bishop, safety out of Utah, he's somebody who has a 9 RAS as well. Extremely athletic, hard hitter. I think he profiles great to be next to Xavier McKinney, and somebody that I'd be very excited to get. There's a lot of variety of places you see him going. We may have to take him as low as 41 if we're really in love with him. I would think the sweet spot would be to get him at pick 58, because I don't think he's going to be around at 88 or 91. If he falls that far, run the card to the podium, because he'd be a dynamic Packer. Couple offensive line prospects that I really like. So we talked about Graham Barton's versatility, but let's just say we go Cooper DeJean. And we get that dynamic secondary piece that we want to put next to Xavier McKinney and basically have the queen, like two queen chess pieces on the field at the same time, right? Cooper Beebe's an interior offensive lineman with an extreme versatility from Kansas State that I'm really in love with, actually. I think he fits well for the Packers, zone blocking scheme. He can move, he can pull. He's played tackle, he's played guard. I think watching him at the combine, he was one of the most fluid movers, and I was immediately impressed with him from just the eye test there. So he's somebody that I'd be really excited to get somewhere in the second round. Kingsley Salamatalia, and I totally butchered that, and I practiced it earlier.
You did a good job. You would have done better than I would have done.
Totally butchered that. Practiced it earlier like 3 times, and I still botched it right. But I think I spent like half the offseason saying it wrong. But offensive tackle from BYU, he's somebody who I think actually can come and play right tackle for us, right? So at pick 41, that's probably the sweet spot for him. If he held to pick 58, run that card to the podium. But he could probably be a day one starter at right tackle, giving you that option to move Zach Tom on into the interior, right? 2 other guys, Xavier Legette, wide receiver from South Carolina, another really high profile athlete, 9.92 on the RAS score, 6'1", like 210. And I know there's a lot of conversation right now about would we take a wide receiver that early? I think that there's a chance if the right guy fell on day 2 that we would take him. We all know that Christian Watson exactly hasn't been a model of health in these first 2 years. And if we're looking for a big-bodied guy who can stretch the field and hopefully stay on the field, I think Xavier Legette might be somebody that we might look at. Last guy, this one strikes pretty close to home for me. I'm going to highlight Marshawn Nealon, edge player from Western Michigan University. So I actually work at Western Michigan University. I pretty much go to every home game because it's right here in town. And he's somebody who's popped for me on the eye test, watching these games in person for more than 2 or 3 years now. I'm not surprised that when he showed up to the combine that he tested the way that he did. Um, I think he would be a great third round selection for the Packers, and somebody that I would be really excited to put on the edge if they're looking for another edge rusher, especially why we have a little depth issue waiting for Kingsley Enagbare to return from injury. So, um, all right. So now that we've talked about some of the guys we love on day two, we're just going to highlight a few guys from day three. We're getting to the point where we're really guessing about what the Packers might be interested in or who would be available.
The
You
real
know,
the real crapshoot of the draft.
right? But we know the Packers, and particularly the last 2 seasons, we found some gems, right? And, I think it's interesting. There's a lot of conversation about what types of athletes we'll take. And I really think that that's true, like rounds 1 through 4. I still think Goody's going to look for athletes that have an RAS score of over 8. But as we know, he's hit on a few athletes that have some some deficiencies here and there, right? I mean, Kingsley Enagbare had an RAS score, I think, somewhere around 5.5, right? We took him a couple years ago. He's been a hit. Romeo Dobbs had a high RAS score, fit every credential we're looking for in a Packers type wide receiver, but he's a hit on day 4, right? So there's these gems out there. And Carrington Valentine, I think he had something like a 9.2 RAS last year, right? Had a great rookie season. Hope he grows in year 2. But we need to probably get a running back on day 3. We probably need to fill out the rest of our depth chart, whether that's at linebacker, offensive line, safety. And maybe I know there's been a little talk about quarterback out there too. Don't be surprised if we take a quarterback in round 6 or 7 to have a little competition. But Rob, who are some guys that you like in round 3, or what are some strategies that you might take to help fill out the roster?
Yeah, so this is the point where I load up on the running backs, considering all the picks that we've had from before. I know that they brought AJ Dillon back. Didn't do as well as we thought he was going to do last year, but very excellent in pass protection, right? Something where Josh Jacobs has struggled. But I think that here is where you look at somebody like Isaac Guerrero, your Wisconsin transfer over to Louisville, right? I think he ran something like a 4.33 40, just absolutely blazing. But absolutely love his tape out of Louisville. I think there's also another running back, Tyrone Tracy, the running back out of Purdue, right? Very versatile, can catch a lot of passes out of the backfield. I think he'd pair very well with Josh Jacobs. So, like, if we go the route that we went through in the first couple of rounds, that's where I'd be looking to add on a good running back or two. Obviously, we still have Emmanuel Wilson there as well too, and I know that they really liked him, and he did pretty decent in some of his time there before he got injured there at the end of the year. So some other really good options: Tyrone Hopper, inside linebacker from Missouri. I know
I
he
think
was
it's
brought in for
Tyron Hopper, but yeah,
Tyron Hopper. Okay,
yeah.
I'm just nailing the names right now, so it's all good. From Missouri. Really good inside linebacker. I feel like would fit well within the scheme. Would obviously bring in a lot of good competition. Be there with Quay Walker.
He's a
And
top 30 visit for the Packers too. So, for
Yep.
some reason or another, the Packers have some interest in him. Obviously, we need linebackers, so I would say that's interest point number 1. But he's a pretty high athletic scorer too, I think. Let me look him up really quick on my little hit chart, right? And if I go ahead and I look up where we're at with Hopper, he's somebody who had a Well, he had a 7.42 RAS, right? And that's probably a reason why they brought him in for a little bit closer look. I think they like the tape. I think they like his size. And they probably just wanted to check out a few things in that top 30 visit. So,
Yeah, and then just one last one too, another top 30 visit as well. If we by chance we wouldn't go offensive line within the first few rounds, Zach Zinter, inside offensive lineman from Michigan. Got a lot of good versatility. Obviously played at a championship level program this last year, and it was very important to that team winning that championship. So I feel like he would be a good look and some of our day three options as well. Is there anyone else that you'd want to highlight too that we might be missing for good day three
yeah, I mean,
options?
sticking on the offensive line, right? I've got a kind of a couple tiers, right? Looking in that fourth round, I really like a guy, that we should all be familiar with, or at least the in-state Wisconsin fans, right? Tanner Bortolini,
Bortolini.
interior offensive lineman from Wisconsin, extremely high tester at the combine, somebody who I think can play guard early on, played tackle.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most versatile and experienced linemen in this draft too, Brandon Coleman, interior offensive lineman from TCU. He started at tackle, guard. I think he might have even had a few snaps at center, right? But I think he's somebody that probably profiles on the inside. I'd be ecstatic to have him in the fourth or fifth round. Dylan McHone, I think is how you pronounce his name, from NC State. I think he would be a great guard, especially blocking in his own running scheme. Um, Two late guys here. I'll give you a sixth or seventh round. Tylan Grabel, offensive tackle from UCF. He's a Packers type all day long. He's got the body type. He's an excellent mover, 9.85 on the RAS. He's somebody that is a sleeper for me late, and I really like him to be one of those depth pieces to maybe be the third or fourth offensive lineman drafted by the Packers to create that competition. Caden Wallace, offensive tackle from Penn State, too. I think he's probably an outside guy. He probably comes in to play right tackle. Be kind of interesting if we ended up with two bookends from Penn State, right? And Rasheed Walker and Caden Wallace. But
Absolutely.
you talked about running back. One guy I'd kind of be remiss not to mention, especially knowing he did come in for a top 30, is Ray Davis. Comparable to Josh Jacobs, which we just went out and made some big news with. Moving on from Aaron Jones, which was a sad day for all of us. But I guess moving into this new era, excited to have Josh Jacobs, but I think Ray Davis is a Packers type. I think he is somebody that can be an excellent replacement for AJ Dillon probably after the season, right? And somebody who has an excellent story. He comes from a pretty humble upbringing, from what I've heard, transferred through a number of programs to get to the SEC, and now he's going to be a draft pick this year, right? So. Um, Two other guys I'll highlight, secondary safety players specifically. Katan Oladapo, another top 30 guy for the Packers, safety from Oregon State. I've been on him for a while. I think
He's a big guy too. 6'2",
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Excellent compliment to Xavier McKinney. Probably plays strong safety for us. I think he could be a day one starter. And then another top 30 visit, Jalen Carlisle, safety from Missouri, another guy in that same mold. He was just in the other day for a visit with the Packers. And I think there's a pretty good chance that both Oladapo and Carlisle are some safeties that the Packers are looking at in the fourth or fifth round. Whether they miss on a guy like Jaden Hicks, DeJean, or Cole Bishop, or they draft one of those guys and they're really looking to build up that depth. I mean, I would love a safety room that contained Xavier McKinney, Cole Bishop, Kitlin Oladapo, and Anthony Johnson Jr. I mean, that's a stud room right there, right? So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you know what? No matter what we think, the Packers are probably going to do something completely opposite. But we love talking about this stuff with you guys. Kind of going through, round one, day two, round two, round three, all the way up through the 7 rounds. Yeah. So with that, just let us know. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Comment your favorite players from this draft. Let us know where you think we're right or where we're wrong. We'd love to know. We'll make sure to get back to you and make sure to engage with you guys too. So Also, don't forget to as well. After this, we're going to be doing a post draft episode as well too. So look for that for coming out for everything from what the Packers had done this last weekend. So Jordan, you got anything else? Or are we ready to get the socials and get out of here?
Yeah, probably at some point in time this weekend. So I did a lot of research this off season. I developed a list of really 90 guys, but I have my top 55, like my guys, Jordan Olson guys, right? A number of them we highlighted here, but a number of them that we haven't, didn't get a chance to touch on in this, short pod that we did today. So I'm going to put that out on X. You want to take a look at that, feel free to comment who you like, who you don't like as well. Hopefully you guys enjoy that resource, but so speaking of that, our socials, you can get a hold of me on X, formerly Twitter, at Olson Jord, OlsonJord. And Rob, you want to throw out yours?
Yeah, so Robber79 is where you can find me on X currently. We're going to build out some of our other socials too for this podcast as well. So look for that coming up. But ROBBERS 79 is my X handle. So with that, giving you some of this draft stuff from us, I guess there's only one thing left to say is enjoy the draft, and we look forward to connecting with you guys soon. Go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go. All right. See you later, Packers fans.